Craig, we had mentioned that we have real estate buyers who both want to buy and resell properties and ones that want to keep them as rentals. And this has made it necessary to create two different programs.
Yes.
One that pays a 9% return on a trust deed and one that pays a 12%. So let's talk about the 9% program that we've really just started because California now has cash flow properties, and there's a huge need because the standard investment or lender world doesn't want to do that loan.
Right.
And we're excited about getting an opportunity to do it.
Yes.
And so the borrower's intent with this loan, the borrower's intent for this 9% program is to keep this property for quite a long time.
Yeah, basically what this group of clients is doing, they're going to buy this house, fix it up, put a renter in there, probably keep it for 7 or 8 years or until maybe the market turns around.
You know, and that's one of the things, I mean, we've pretty much lost a lot of value, and now we're starting to see some signs of it certainly firming and in some places escalating. And so a trust deed that we do right now will be at a certain equity position and gain equity position over the next 8 years to where that will be pretty ridiculously safe.
Exactly. This is about as safe of an investment in a trust deed that you can get because you're secured not only by a good property, the clientele we deal with in this program, they're very capable of doing this. If banks were lending, they'd probably be getting money from banks, but banks just aren't lending.
Correct.
So now we're satisfying a need in the marketplace, and the loan to value that we go is 60%, which if people aren't familiar with that, if a house is worth $100,000, we only lend $60,000, and that house was probably worth $250 or $300 just 3 years ago.
That's
so
right.
we're pretty much at the bottom, or at least close to it.
And in addition to that, that house probably rents for twice what the interest payment is.
Yeah, if they're getting a payment of say, $500, it probably rents for $900 to $1,000. So you're also protected by twice the amount of the rent.
Right. So, and that's the beauty of this program, and also that's why the interest rate has to be more reasonable than the other program is. We're really trying to make sure it cash flows for the borrower, but at the same time that protects the trust deed investor because the likelihood of that investor losing that property becomes very, very remote.
Exactly. And then the nice thing about the 9% versus the other program, the 9% is making 9% interest every day, 365 days a year, as long as you have that note, where the other program, it goes in and out, so yeah. It's not as consistent.
What type of trust deed investor would be interested in this type of trust deed, the 9%? What would be the likely candidate?
This is probably the person that's even a little more passive than the typical client that we have. We get a lot of retirement money in this because a lot of it's tax-free now, so 9% tax-free is very good. This is probably not the person that thinks they can do something better. You know, the clients you mentioned before, they're always trying to find that next thing that they can do to make 50%.
Right.
This is probably that client that's just very satisfied making a very steady Eddie return.
Well, you know what's interesting, most of our trust deed investors are really not the person that goes away when there's greener pastures. They really have found the pasture and now they just want to add more money to it.
Exactly.
This trust deed investor also is really having to make one decision, and it has a long yield, if you will, where often the trustees are getting paid off. So this person's going, okay, I'm going to make a decision with this chunk of money, and then 5 to 8 years worth of payments show up, and there's no more time involvement in that, and that's a pretty nice thing to have.
Oh, absolutely.
It's also one other point. It's less expensive to do this type of loan inside of a retirement account because you're making one event decision as opposed to multiple ones. Would that be true?
Right, because most of the retirement accounts charge you every time there's a transaction. So there's just one transaction in this case.
Okay. Okay, the 12% trust deed investment, who's the borrower and what's their intent when they borrow this money?
Well, on the 12% program, the borrower is going to borrow the money, they're going to fix up the house, they're going to resell it. Usually that process probably takes them in this market about 4 to 6 months. Then they're going to pay off the funds, do it over again. So it's just somebody that's going to buy and flip the houses for the 12% program.
And this has really been very common for hard money loan companies, since you and I met anyway, is to do this type of loan where they've been putting money out and getting paid back. And there's some safety in that too, because you're constantly getting paid back, and so your new loan is at a corrected appraisal value. And
Right.
And it's, if you have a lot of money, it's also in chunks. If you have $1 million in trust deeds, it could be in 8 properties. So there's diversity inside of that.
Exactly. So you're always re-lending it at whatever the current market value is.
Okay.